Coming up on today's edition of the Art Marketing Podcast, more conversations equal more art sales. Now, imagine for me, if you will. Actually, let me blindfold you for this effect. You are now blindfolded. You're at an art show or fair. You've set up your booth. Your best work is front and center, and a sea of people are walking past your booth. Some will walk right past your booth, not even crane their necks an inch to look at your setup and keep going. Some will walk by, casually glance at your work, and then keep walking. Others will stop. They'll look things over. They'll pause for a moment. They'll take it all in, then they'll keep walking. Some will stop, come right into your booth, start chatting you up and asking questions. Sometimes things will really be rocking and you'll have multiple people in there at the same time. You can't talk to all of them. You do your best. Some stay, some leave. That scenario I just outlined happened last weekend at shows and fairs. It will happen this weekend at shows and fairs. It's going to happen the weekend after that. Now stop imagining that scenario for me, because it's not at an art show or fair. I take off the blindfold and we're staring at your social media feed. The exact same thing that happens at the shows and fairs pretty much happens with your work that's posted on the socials. Some scroll by and don't even see it. Some stop with their thumb for a brief second and then keep going. Some stop with their thumb, they're interested, they read your caption, and then they keep moving. Some stop, though, and maybe they leave a comment or a like or a share. Some even do all of the above and send you a message or click a link and sometimes even go to your website and buy something from you. But they aren't so different at the end of the day. This art fair show booth experience and the online social media experience. Now, in the real world experience, what happens? What do you do if someone stops and appears to be interested in your work? Well, you take up the initiative and you strike a conversation. How you doing? I'm so-and-so. I'm the artist. And then you see where it goes. My position has been for a long time that everything that we do digitally, should mirror what we do in the real world. You know, there's no need to reinvent the wheel, right? Let's just stick to what works. And, this has been our philosophy at Art Storefronts for a long time. What do our websites look like? Well, they look exactly what the art gallery experience looks like. Very simple, minimalist. It's all about the work. What happens when you go into an art gallery? Every art gallery all across the world. Plain white walls, the art on the wall, lights, and nothing else, right? Everything that we do digitally should just embrace the paradigm of how we do things in the real world. And my position is that is a great heuristic about how to think about how you do things in the digital world. Make it as close as possible to how the paradigm is, to what the established norm is for the real world, right? And so you take the initiative and you open up a conversation. And why would you do that? Well, it turns out conversations that are an integral part of selling your creations. You might say all art sales have a conversation in there somewhere. And, there's no need to reinvent the wheel. Let's just stick to what works. If somebody shows interest in your work, you strike up the conversation and you talk about it. You don't know where that conversation's going to go, but you don't care. You're starting the conversation. That's your job. So somebody shows interest in your work, strike up a conversation. Okay, back to social media. What do we mostly do? We sit around and we wait for the conversation to come to us. People leave comments and we respond, right? And that sort of works. It's sort of a conversation. It's better than nothing. At least you get back to them. But you didn't really have a conversation though, did you? I mean, if they respond and it goes back and forth, sure. But the venue, i.e. in public where everyone else can see it and hear it, it's not quite as intimate as a real conversation. And people are guarded. They don't, hey, great work. And thanks so much for the comment. You're awesome, right? So people leave comments and we respond. Okay, great. What about things when things get busy, though? When people stopped by your booth, showed some appreciation, and kept moving? Did you have a conversation with them? What about in the social media context? And the answer is no. The way it actually works in social media is that people interact with our work in various ways. They stop their scroll with their thumb, and either they comment or like. And as a result, we have zero conversations with them, right? Like there's lots of people that just like your work, and you don't have a conversation with them. And in some cases, there's people that comment. You don't have a conversation with them. Like, we are ignoring what the paradigm is in the real world. That social media profile, your social media post is no different than you in a booth with your work. If somebody stops, okay, out of everybody that's just moving right past the booth at the art fair and going somewhere else and they're not interested, if somebody stops, you got to go on offense and you got to have that conversation, right? Why are we treating social media differently than we would the real world scenario? And, it's like, in my mind, I have this awkward video where you're sitting in front of your art show booth with a giant piece of duct tape across your mouth. And I just walked by and I stopped and I showed interest and I was looking at a couple of pieces. You saw me looking at a couple of pieces. I haven't walked into the booth yet, but I'm clearly appreciating it because I stopped. You stopped me dead in my tracks. And now I'm looking around and there you are with a piece of duct tape on your mouth, waiting for me to say something first. And I feel like that has been our approach to social media. And we've got to stop doing that. We need to start taking the initiative, right? We can't sit around and do nothing until they start talking to us. If they show interest, we need to start a conversation. And so my argument, what I plan to tactically outline for you today, is what happens when we start taking that initiative. And I love going to the source lately. I've been talking a ton about this because I'm just fascinated by it. But there is the head of Instagram. If you guys have seen me do any live broadcast, by the way, I've talked about this ad nauseum, but there is the head of Instagram. It's this guy, his name's Adam Mosseri. And he basically tells us what Instagram is doing, right? And he kind of couches his language and it's a little bit cryptic in that, but you listen to him to get the ideas of what you need to do on the platform to maximize your experience there. Every single solitary social media consultant and their brother watches every post that this guy does. Then they go make their carousels and reels and posts teaching their audience what to do. Well, you can just skip all of that and go directly to the source. Let's hear what he has to say. Unmute this here.
Note on 2025. Now, I think this is going to be a pretty busy year, not only because we've got a lot going on Instagram, but because there's a lot happening in the world right now. So I wanted to stress that at Instagram, we're going to be focused on two things: creativity and connecting with the people that you care about. Now, Instagram was really founded on the idea of allowing anybody to share something creative that they were proud to share. And so we want to double down on that by making sure that our creative tools are best in class across the board, which they are not right now, by embracing new technologies like AI to allow more creators to create more content that they're proud of, by trying to reward creative content more by ranking on things like originality. But we don't just want to be a place where people...
This is the part that's important. I like that first part, but this is the part that's important.
Who are creative share and other people passively consume. We want people to connect over the things that they discover on Instagram. And so in terms of connecting with friends, a few more things that we're going to focus on. Doubling down on messaging.
Doubling down on messaging.
Which, by the way, is the primary way people share on Instagram today, even though a lot of people don't think of us that way.
Primary way people share on Instagram today. And it's very, very interesting, when he telegraphs like that, right? And the messaging part makes a ton of sense, doesn't it? This is essentially the added benefit, the added bonus of everything that I'm going to outline here today. But this is a really important point, so I'm going to feel like I've got to go on a quick tangent here. What happens on Instagram, okay? Your friends, your fam, they find funny, cool, interesting things. Then they message you the cool stuff. They send you a reel. They send you a post. Maybe they leave you a couple of comments and a direct message, which you then go and watch and enjoy. And then you likely comment back to your friends, all of which drives more engagement on the platform and keeps you there longer. Turns out Instagram really likes that. Stands to reason, and this has certainly been my experience lately, and I'm assuming this will resonate with you too. There are certain friends that I have where Instagram direct messages have sort of morphed into essentially text message level relationships with my friends. By which I mean, instead of texting them like I would normally on my phone, because we're already in a conversation on Instagram over DMs, I'm just naturally having text message conversations with them there, right? Like, that's happening on a regular basis. Is that your use cases pattern too? And, it starts with sending funny clips, and then we're just right into it. Oh man, that was classic. Thanks for sending that. By the way, looks like that wildfire is getting really close to your house. I live in Southern California, and so in the last couple of weeks, this has been a real thread. Have you evacuated yet? My friend sends back a message. Yep, walking the dogs right now, and then we're going to get in the car and bail. The air quality is terrible. I'll call you from the road. What started is my buddy and I sending messages back and forth in Instagram, hilarious content, things that he and I have a shared interest in, morphed into this like text message relationship between the two of us. It's easier for me to get his attention on Instagram than it is to even send him a phone message. I'm already in Instagram. That's convenient. I might as well just stay in here and text message with him, right? And Instagram would love for nothing more than Instagram DMs to be the hub of your communication and replace text messages. They're going to do everything in their power to will this into reality, which means extra reach, extra ranking signals associated with this activity. If your content gets a ton of message activity around it, guess what is going to happen? They are going to show that content to way, way more people. If that was not big enough benefit, if your content lands in a direct message inbox, it makes it just that much easier for them to share it with their friends, their social circle. So if you run this tactic that I'm outlining, your art lands in a direct message box as someone that showed interest in your work. They then send that art to friends and ask them what they think. Check out this artist I've been following. I'm contemplating getting this piece for my kitchen. Do you think this would look great in my living room, right? So this is really, the whole technique, this whole tactic that I'm going to teach you guys today is just absolutely cooking with gas, you guys. Cooking with gas. Let me ask you this question. Do you have a marketing funnel? Do you have a marketing funnel in your business? My disdain for that term is massive. I think it's been bastardized and sold as a panacea to artists and many others. I mean, the number of art consultants hawking some sort of magic funnel idea or software. Oh, it's ClickFunnels. People will come to my webinars. No, I just signed up for this plan that's going to give me a ClickFunnels for my business. A ClickFunnels funnel for artists so that I can sell my work. Bolt this funnel into your business and everything will change. What a bunch of nonsense. Nothing is going to change in your business unless your work, your product is something people want and it sells. If not, there's no funnel, there's no magical Facebook formula, there's no pricing or Facebook ads hack or anything else that's going to get you past that immutable fact, right? But if we do boil the concept of a funnel down to its like simple, essential elements, right? Look, if you want to harvest a crop, you first need to plant seeds. If you want to make a meal, you're going to need the starting ingredients, right? If you want to travel to Cabo San Lucas for some fun in the sun and a beer with a lime in it, you have to get on an airplane, okay? So if the harvest and the meal and the trip to Cabo is a completed art sale, well, you're going to need to have a conversation with a buyer first, right? That is an essential step to the art actually selling. And all of this harkens back to my episodes on this very podcast about how to price your art and how when you have a proper range of pricing, you open yourself up to increase a very important metric in your business. What do I always say about pricing? You need a range and you need non-wall art in the lineup. Why? Doing so will increase your creative business chances of acquiring a higher number of new customers per year. What is one of the truest predictors of revenue potential for any creative business? Number of new customers acquired per year. Why? Because the easiest customer to get is the one that you already have. Moreover, a customer is a customer. They've had a transaction with you regardless of what the value of that transaction was. Right? It doesn't matter to you if the transaction was $5, $500, $5,000, $50,000, or $5 million. As long as the transaction took place, as long as you have contact information on this buyer, then you've acquired a new customer. And the easiest customer to get is the one that you already had. Just repeat it and repeat it and repeat it. It's such an important thing to know. And in our show and fair example, one of those folks that was walking by and stopped and bought a sticker from you and you got the contact details, nice job. the math say that person is more likely to come back and buy from you again than if they never purchased from you in the first place. Stated another way, the person that bought a sticker or merch or any kind of you in a small print is more likely to come back and buy an expensive print or an original than somebody that decided to wait and think about it, and perhaps they'll call you when they're ready later, right? And so my position is that a great early metric for you to track when marketing your creations digitally would be the number of conversations that you had per month about your creations. I could argue that you should be putting that metric in a spreadsheet. No one tracks that. No one has any idea what that number is. If I asked you how many conversations about your art did you have last month, you'd be like, 6. So I think if this month, by using this tactic I'm about to outline, you could probably potentially 50x, pending your individual circumstances, the number of conversations about your art that you had. And that would be a big deal if you did that. That could really help you move the needle in your business. It's not about more posting or different post types or reels ideas or any of the other nonsense we get stuck in all the time. It's not nonsense. You do need to work on that. But this is something different. So let's take all this into account. Instead of sitting on the sidelines and waiting for folks to start conversations with us, let's, like we would in the real world, okay, at a fair or a show or a gallery or anything else, take the initiative on social media and start the conversations ourselves. That means tactical and proactive outreach on Instagram at a minimum, but you could also argue this works on Facebook. It could work on LinkedIn. It could work on Twitter, now X. It could work on TikTok. It could work on Blue Sky. Better still, as I know you're all terrified of being salesy or pushy or aggressive, I formulated a lovely and gracious way of doing this without having to be salesy or pushy or aggressive. And really, the job is just to start the conversation and get a response. You never know where they might go. So it's all about just getting the response. Like so much of what we do in marketing, it really comes down to a numbers game. To go back to my archery, I love my archery analogy. It's just about the number of arrows fired, the number of conversations you had. So better still again, I formulated a tactic here that puts ArtHelper AI to work for you to make it super easy and value filled. So allow me to outline the tactic, give you some finer points to it, and then given this is an audio episode of the podcast, I've decided to start doing more audio episodes like this and get back to the roots of what this podcast was, because I like the audio episodes. The video episodes are great too, but sometimes the audio ones are just quicker. But this tactic I'm about to outline has some nitty gritty visual aspects to it. The good news is I've recorded multiple videos outlining how exactly I do this and some of the results I've been getting, so you can watch and see those. I will put them in the show notes. They will be on our YouTube channel. They'll be on the ArtHelper AI Instagram account, so you can see it. But just click the show notes on whatever podcast platform you're watching, or if it's on YouTube, it'll be down there, depending on how you consume this thing. But okay, let's get into it. The tactic, succinctly. And side note, I do all this on my computer, by the way, because I find it's the quickest way to get it done. Could you do all of it on your phone? Yeah, you could, but it's just way, way faster on the computer. So use a computer. You pull up your Instagram profile on a web browser. You pull up your profile page. You mouse over your posts, and you look for the ones that have comments or likes. Instagram makes this very easy. You just hover over a post and you can see exactly how many comments and exactly how many likes. You then click on the post. You can obviously highlight any commenter and look at their profile, but you can also, by mousing over the likes, you can see who liked your post, okay? And then click to their profile. And you want to do a quick smell test here. Do I know this person? I.e., is it a friend or whatever? If it's a friend, okay, just skip past it. Is this person just another artist, i.e., not likely a buyer? Skip over them. Does this person look like an interior designer? Or when I look at their profile, do they seem to be a high net worth individual? You might want to prioritize those. But realistically, if the person doesn't pass the smell test, you can just skip them. And lastly, does their profile have the message button showing? Some of them have messaging turned off by default, some don't. So if they have it turned off, you skip them. And then you look at what post they commented on. What was the artwork in there? Was it a reel that had multiple pieces of artwork? You get the context. Next, you boot up ArtHelper AI, okay? If you don't already have an account, go and get one. They're free. I'll put a link to it in the show notes, or you can just Google ArtHelper.ai, click sign up. It's free. You've got it. Now, you grab the piece of art that they commented on, and you either already have room mockups generated for it because you've been using ArtHelper, or generate some. This takes literally seconds, and you can download them. Then, with a few room mockups in your download folder, you hit the message button and send them a message. And here's where I love this. Remember, our objective is just to open the conversation. Those people either liked or commented on a post you created. So this is the real world equivalent of they stopped by your booth and looked at some pieces and showed interest. You're not sending a message to someone that just ignored you or doesn't like you, like some sort of cold outreach or spam mail. No, these people stopped by your booth. They liked something. They commented on something. They've shown interest. And so all we're doing is taking the initiative to fire up that conversation. Okay. Here is what I love to say. Hey, Jeffrey123. I just wanted to say thank you so much for the comment or the like, whatever they did, on my post. Your interaction on Instagram helps me get my art out there, and I wanted to say thank you. I really appreciate it. As a way of saying thanks, I figured I'd send you some images of the post you liked. Then upload the room mockups. Boom, boom, boom. That's it. You say thanks and have a great day. And all you're doing is opening up a conversation, okay? You're attempting to start a conversation, and no different than the conversations that we have in the real world. Some of those will go nowhere. You'll get ignored. Okay. They're still going to likely see it. Maybe they don't. Doesn't matter. Some will lead to strange places, okay? They'll be weird. It's a weird conversation. Also happens in the real world. Okay. And some will lead to awesome places. Just like the real world, you never know. It's just you being in the booth, striking up a conversation. Oh, you painted that. I grew up there. That's awesome. Do you know so-and-so? No. Okay, thanks, bye. Okay, that's how someone can go. But wow, I really like that. Your style is really interesting. Could I commission you? Or eventually it might lead to a sale. What's amazing though, is even just exercising this technique, what are you doing? Okay. If it doesn't lead to a conversation anywhere, you are reinforcing positive behavior you want to continue to see on their part, namely them liking and commenting on your posts, which will get your post more reach. You're just saying, hey, I saw that you did that. Thank you. Here's some extra value via these room mockups. Have a great day. That's amazing. Because you went out of your way, though, what will likely happen is you will get a response and you will have generated a conversation for your marketing spreadsheet. I want to talk quickly about the direct message limits before we wrap things up. If you have a new account that you just started, you can do this 20 to 50 times a day. If you have an older seasoned account on Instagram that's been around for a while, you can send 50 to 100 of these a day. And if you have a verified account, you can send up to 150 a day. Those are sort of what the guidelines are. So probably best to stay underneath that. And in my testing on this, I'm able to send about like 40 to 50 of these in an hour's worth of work. So from a time investment standpoint, it's amazing. And even you guys that have like low like and low follower, low engagement, you still have a couple of likes and you still have a couple of comments, and you can go all the way back in time. It's amazing how easy this is to do. And again, it's better if you see the video. I'm going to include the video in the show notes. I want to see you guys do this. And ultimately, when you see the level of success that this brings, I want to try and automate this entire thing, but that's a conversation. Send a few hundred of these things. Do you know what's going to happen? You're going to start having a whole lot more conversations than you ever did before. And some of those conversations are going to lead to more likes and comments and shares. And some are going to lead to commissions. And yes, some are going to lead to sales. So it's time in 2025 to stop sitting around and waiting for something to happen and to start taking proactive initiative in your art business. So go download the free version of ArtHelper and start sending messages. Watch the video, that I've outlined, and let's get going. And on that note, thank you very much for listening. Please review the podcast on Apple Podcast or Spotify. No one's left me a like or a comment in like 2 weeks, and I'm feeling depressed about it. But seriously, if you're getting value out of this, I would really appreciate a like or a comment or a review on Apple or Spotify or YouTube. But seriously, thanks for listening. Appreciate you. Have a great